I haven't found a time, place, or culture that hasn't reported sleep paralysis in some way. But each time, place, or culture seems to put their own little stamp on it. It seems to be a fairly universal experience. In 21st century America, we might be a little more skeptical of the supernatural explanations. So we might think, well, demons, not really, that doesn't seem reasonable. Maybe technologically advanced aliens, or maybe interdimensional shadow people.
I thought I was asleep, and all of a sudden I'm just in my bed, laying down, can't move. And that was the first time since when I was younger that the shadow figure appeared. And he was standing in the corner of my room this time. He's just standing there looking at me, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the night I die.
So one possibility for why people may see kind of shadowy figures or intruders is the brain gets itself into this kind of paradoxical state where you've got a very strong fear response in the brain, but your immediate perception is that there isn't anything there, there's nothing to be scared of. So the brain kind of sort of hallucinates a threat. And one of the most obvious threats when you're lying in your room unable to move is an intruder coming into the room to do harm to you.
He starts walking around the bed, and he comes up to the edge of the bed and just looks down at me. And then all of a sudden, I thought I was out of it.
If we were in medieval Europe, we might experience an incubus on top of us, which is a nocturnally assaulting and very sex-crazed demon. If we were in Japan, we might experience kanashibari, which means to be bound or fastened by metal. In China, they call it being oppressed by the ghost.
I couldn't move, and I remember trying to scream, and nothing was coming out. But I knew I was awake. I knew 100% I was awake. I looked up, and there was like a black figure with like a distorted human face coming down my wall.
I think for me, it started with any type of stress I had in my life, like any serious stress. So whenever my body was very tired, but my mind was still running, is when it would start. And it would start first very subtle, and I would lay down and fall asleep, and then I would like wake up, and then I couldn't move anything. And it would like, it'd be like a little weird, but it wasn't anything scary. When I first started college, I was 17, I went to school in Atlanta, and it was just really like kind of stressful and traumatic and like a culture shock. So I was like very, very depressed, like underweight. My first semester, it was just really hard. And that's when it became really bad.
Like I said, anything that interferes with your sleep, so being stressed, being depressed, people that have trauma histories are more likely to have sleep paralysis as well. All those things contribute to the experience. Really, anything that disrupts your normal sleep cycle is going to make sleep paralysis more likely. So some people get it when they're jet lagged from traveling, or if you drink alcohol. Alcohol can make it easier for you to go to sleep sometimes, but it actually ends up suppressing REM activity until the end of the night, which makes you more likely to get a sleep paralysis episode.
That's one of the things we're researching at the moment, is to look at factors that may indicate an underlying predisposition to have sleep paralysis, and then also specific triggers that might cause specific episodes to happen.
And I was not sleeping or eating. I was like literally working, I want to say probably close to 80 hours a week. The doctor's like, okay, she's not crazy, she just hasn't slept. It was like probably 3 months after like my crazy break, and that's when I fell asleep in my bed. I remember being like in the center of my bed. This time I woke up and it was like my body wasn't moving with my eyes open, and there was like this dark figure, and it was like, I'm coming to take your soul. And it was in a voice that was like the stereotypical scary movie, I'm gonna get you, like Batman face mask voice.
But if you are worried about them, if you fear that they are causing you damage, then you will start to do things that might not help you. So you might start avoiding things. You might start worrying about what's going to happen when I try to go to sleep the next time. So it's the appraisal of the event that's the problem more than the event itself.
That one was like, I can feel if you are seeing it from me, I would know it was you because it's very physical. I know you're there. Sometimes when you close your eyes, and you could feel certain people's like kind of weird energy in the room where it's like my mom's in the room. I'm like that sometimes. So for me, it was very like a blind physical experience, like your other senses were stronger. I remember that looking at only at the dark figure, and I remember closing my eyes. I wouldn't look at it because it's too scary and I'm gonna get stuck.
Sleep can be broken down broadly into REM sleep and non-REM sleep. Within non-REM sleep, you then have a further 3 stages. So as you're falling asleep, you go into stage 1 sleep, which is kind of a light sleep. You're very easily awoken. You probably can still kind of make out things that are going on in the environment. After that, you can go into a period called stage 2 sleep. That's kind of when you're really fully asleep and less aware of the environment, and you get these very unique patterns of brain activity that indicates you're in stage 2 sleep. After that, you then fall into deep sleep or stage 3 sleep, and this is kind of when you're the most unconscious you are. You're very unaware of the environment. Your brain activity and your body activity is very low. After that, you then progress back from stage 3 into stage 2, and then stage 1, and then you'll have a period of REM sleep. And that whole cycle takes around 90 minutes. And you go through these cycles repeatedly throughout the night. As the night goes on, you get less periods of deep sleep and more periods of REM sleep. So when close to waking up is when you're having most of your REM periods of sleep, which is why you're likely to wake up straight from a dream. Because towards the end of the night, you have lots of REM sleep. And that's the broad cycle.
And then all of a sudden, I thought I was out of it. I ended up in a dream. And in the dream, I was in my bed, and I was walking around. I walk out of my room, and I'm in my hallway, in my house. It feels so real. So I walk down the end of my hallway, and my dad is in the den watching TV. And I remember it was just static on the TV. But at the time, in the dream, I didn't realize, this is weird. So I get out of there, I go back in my room, and I lay back down, and then it hit me. I'm still paralyzed. So I snap back in my bed. The shadow figure standing right next to my bed, and he's just screaming at me, "You're not ready, you're not ready, you're not ready." And I'm freaking out at this point because there's nothing I can do. So finally, snap out of it again. I realize I'm running late for school. I jump in my car, I start driving, and right on my road, the shadow figure walks out in front of me. And I swerve to avoid him, I crash into a tree, and I could feel everything. I felt my arms break, I felt myself in just a heap of pain, and the shadow figure just comes up to my car, and right before he touches me, I'm back in my bed, frozen again, and he's doing the same thing, standing by my bed, standing over me, screaming, "You're not ready, you're not ready, you're not ready." And then after a while, I just couldn't take it. I almost started to cry, and right before I started to cry, I finally snapped out of it.
Yeah, there's no danger in the physical sense of having an episode of sleep paralysis. We know that it's a very normal physiological kind of response that you get the paralysis during other stages of sleep. But in terms of physical harm, there isn't any danger at all. The danger can come from very traumatic or repeated episodes could cause sort of psychological harm in extreme cases, but there's no physical risk of damage or harm.